Breaking news tonight, the Legion's lifeless corpse has been found inside a ditch outside of the Mount Ormond Resort. Witnesses were speculating where the body would be dumped after behavior took him behind the shed and shot him in the back of the head. All jokes aside though, I wanted to talk about the current status of 2v8 because I think the game mode might be in serious trouble. And one reason that I think that is because the queue times are actually getting worse. Now, for a while, they were really bad, and then they slowly got better, and now they're bad again. And originally, I had thought the reason they were so bad, and I actually see not a lot of people agreeing with me or even bringing up this point, I should say, is the fact that the queue times were so bad at the very beginning. One, because 2v8, 2 killers, obviously brand new, so every survivor wants to play killer, which everybody brought that up. But the second point that I brought up that not a lot of people were also bringing up was the fact that there's only like I think there was 4 or 6 killers introduced in the first iteration of 2v8, so everybody wanted to play Huntress. She was the most popular pick out of those original killers that were added to the game. She was the best, she had the most hatchets, so obviously if you have 200,000 killers queuing up for 2v8, 100,000 are Huntress, it's going to be a lot harder to find matches for the killers because, you know, one of the 4 or one of the 6 killers are Huntresses, and obviously there's no duplicate killer, so 2 Huntresses can't get paired together. Although that would be dope. I would love to see 2 Ghostfaces or 2 Chucky and Tiffany, you know, things like that. I think that would be awesome. At the end of the day, I guess that wasn't really the problem because while the queue times did slowly get better with new changes and improvements and additions to the 2v8 killer rule, and they got much better with the addition of play while you wait, queue times dropping all the way down sometimes to 12 minutes, 12, 13, and 15 minutes, which is still a lot, but nothing crazy. Now the queue times have shot back up to 30 minutes. 30 minutes per match. Now, I know it's kind of a region-based thing. Obviously, you know, it can be really bad in Europe and really quick in America and things like that, but I'm just going based off of what I see over here in North America. But to be totally honest, I'm really not sure what could be done to save this game mode. I really don't know why survivors don't want to play the survivor side. My guess to why the queue times are still so awful is because the survivors want to play killer, obviously. You know, a lot of survivors will never touch the killer role ever. And I'm not even saying that to be like, you know, rude or like, oh, I hate all survivor mains or anything like that. Genuinely, they just won't touch the role because, you know, it's a very stressful role a lot of them find. So, you know, survivor's a lot more casual and laid back. But with 2 killers and 8 survivors, it's a lot more casual and relaxed. So this is the only time that a lot of those survivors are ever going to play the killer role. And they actually have the ability to play a lower stress version of the killer role, even though you're pretty much guaranteed to lose in 2v8 at this point because survivors have so many crazy abilities. And it doesn't help that the killers have pretty mediocre abilities compared to what they used to have. But yeah, I think the only thing that can possibly change the queue times and actually make people want to play Survivor, instead of coming up with these, you know, generic, boring, whack classes like Blast Mine class and the Torchbearer class, I think they need to give survivors entirely new objectives. Entirely new objectives. This is 2v8. This isn't the original game mode. This is something completely different. You could redo the game entirely just for this game mode. You could give survivors the option to maybe, like, you know, build an escape hatch that 2 can escape from, and then the devs could come up with something. Like I said, survivors could find pieces to build a hatch. Other survivors could build an exit gate or something like that. You know, other survivors could build generators to power certain gates, you know, or build a portal that leads like to the void. So it's like they're not really escaping, but they are escaping. It counts as an actual escape and a win, but, you know, lore-wise, they're not actually escaping. They just thought they escaped. Things like that. I think if you give survivors an entirely new thing to do, instead of just repairing generators, they would actually want to play the game. I think the queue times might get better as we add more and more killers. It might get slightly better, but I don't know, because they shot back up recently, at least from my recent experience. And then the fact that they removed Legion entirely because survivors hated him because he was really the only form of slowdown. You know, he's got his passive slowdown. And that's honestly probably why they haven't added killers. Like, they clearly skipped killers. You know, they skipped Doctor, they skipped Clown. They went all the way straight to Chucky, you know, like licensed killers, things like that. Even going off of the original killer standpoint, they went straight to Deathslinger. which, you know, was way later. They skipped a lot of original killers in between those two. They're probably not going to bring in Pig because of her bear traps. They probably won't bring in Doctor because of his, you know, tier 3 madness, just things like that. Probably won't bring in Sadako because of her tapes. Anything that the survivors don't like, because they're trying desperately to get survivors to play the 2v8 game mode. So they removed Legion. They said he'd be back. They said they'd come up with a rework for him and make him more entertaining or fun to go against. But I actually don't think he's going to come back ever, to be honest, because I really don't see a way you can bring him back. I think maybe if you just make it to where, I don't know, he does 3 Feral Frenzy hits and the 4th one is an insta down, you know, it's at least you're not putting the whole entire lobby into a deep min simulator. Maybe you just get rid of deep wound entirely and he's just injuring people, and that's just his thing. You know, he just injures everybody super quick. And then when he's chasing somebody who's injured, he gets like a 5% haste or something like that. Those could be options for sure. As it stands right now, survivors hate him. Survivors really hate Oni too, and I thought Oni was going to get removed for sure, but surprisingly, I haven't heard too many people complaining about him. But yeah, at this current point, the devs are just constantly buffing the survivor role and trying to make it fun, which I understand, but I just think they're going the wrong route. I think instead of making survivors miniature demigods and buffing them beyond belief by giving them, like, you know, blinding glasses and flashbangs and infinite god palettes and instant heals and sprint burst on demand and 20-second sprint burst and things like that, I think they should go a different route entirely, and I think they should give survivors totally new things to do, Something that's so interesting that even the killers are like, damn, I want to play Survivor, you know what I mean? I think really that's the best way and probably the only way you could honestly reasonably make this game mode stick. You'd probably, if you came up with entirely brand new things for survivors to do, like I suggested, like, you know, a portal and a hatch and things like that, you would probably knock it down to like 10 minutes. I don't know if it would ever get lower than that, because, you know, 2 killers versus 8 survivors. It's just very fun to be the killer role. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about that real quick because I was very shocked to see that the killer queue times went all the way back up to 30 minutes. That's literally the longest I have ever seen in, like, I don't know, a year or two of this game being out. Like, I think at one point they were at like 37 minutes, 38 minutes, but I really don't remember. But I know 30 is very high for what they used to be in the past couple iterations. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. Let me know if you guys have any ideas of like how you would change the survivor role. Like I said, I really do believe, I'm just repeating myself at this point, but I really do believe giving survivors something entirely brand new to do would encourage them to play the survivor role. So yeah, that does it for this one. Let me know what you guys think, and thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, to that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one.